This PetX Talk is brought to you by Pet World Media Group, your partner in all things pet media. Additional funding and considerations provided by Natura Pets, Found Animals, and Dogwise Publishing. Are you ready to be empowered? Then join us for this PetX Talk.
Hi, it's Steve Pelletier here from SlimDoggy.com. Today I'm going to talk about, is a rotational diet a good strategy for your pet? As William Cowper said in his book, variety is the spice of life. I'm actually paraphrasing that. But what he's saying is really true, whether it's with ordinary things that you do in life or most importantly with your diet. We as humans, we try to rotate our food and have a variety of foods and nutrients. Number one, because we don't want to be bored, and number two, because it's good for us. Think about this. Imagine if every single meal you had was chicken, sweet potatoes, and green beans. For breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, tomorrow for breakfast, lunch, dinner, the day after. You'd go crazy. You'd be so bored with that, number one. And number two, you'd end up with severe nutritional problems. So what do we do as humans? We vary our diets. Whether it's because of taste issues or because we want to be cognizant of getting the proper nutrition, most people have something different every single day. And there's a real reason for that. So the question is, why do we do it for our pets? Why do we serve our pets the same food over and over and over and over again? Well, there's a myth, and I don't know who started this myth, and it's been around for a really long time, that once you find a food that your pet likes, you should stick with it and feed them that food for the rest of their life. What in the world is that? Why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. So to address this issue, this myth, some of the leading vets now are bringing up this idea of rotational feeding strategies. Let me tell you what rotational feeding strategy is. Basically, it's like a human diet. It says, over time, rotate the proteins and the carbohydrate sources in your pet's food. Over time, rotate the recipes, maybe even the brands that you're feeding your pet every day for their meals. And essentially give your pet a much more fuller variety of nutrients so that over time they're healthier and much better with respect to their nutrition. Why should you address your pet's diet with a rotational strategy? It's a good question. People don't even think about it very often. There's several reasons why. There's several benefits. Number one, if you feed your pet a rotational diet, the odds that they're going to develop food allergies go way down. And I'll come back to that point a little bit later. The second thing is that these foods, the pet foods, the commercially available pet foods, they're formulated to meet minimum nutritional standards. But does that mean that they are perfect for your pet? The answer is very unlikely. So feeding them the same thing over time can actually lead to nutritional problems, which manifest in disease. The third aspect of rotational diet is this concept of food synergy. And the way foods interact and nutrients interact in the bodies suggests that you want the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And because of the way commercial food is created, some of those synergies can be lost. And if you feed the pet the same food over time, they don't benefit from those synergies. And then the last reason why is that because of the way commercial pet food is created or cooked, very often they are full of added vitamins and minerals, which aren't necessarily bad, but oftentimes those added vitamins and minerals are synthetic or isolated vitamin and minerals. And the problem with that strategy is that the body oftentimes doesn't recognize those as the core substance and therefore doesn't benefit from those added vitamins. So that's the rotational strategy, that's the benefit. But wait, you say, pet foods are formulated to be a complete and balanced diet for the pet's entire life, or so you would seem if you read the label. The bottom line is that, as I said, these foods are formulated to meet minimums. They do not guarantee that the recipe is perfect for your own pet. And I use this analogy So let's say that the food that you're feeding your pet, it could be a quality food, but let's say for your pet, it's just a little bit off in terms of what that pet needs from a nutritional perspective. Think about this, a little bit over a long period of time can lead to a big problem. Let's say you were in Europe ready to launch your ship and you made a little bit of a course correction by like this much and you were headed to the United States. That little bit, this much over a large ocean could be the difference between Florida and Maine. So the same holds true with your feeding strategy. If that food is not perfectly formulated for your own individual pet's needs, over time, they could end up with nutritional deficiencies, even though it meets the standard as defined by the AFCO. Another really key issue with rotational strategies is allergies. So PetEducation.com says that 10% of all pet allergies are food allergies, quite a bit. Furthermore, they say that 40% of dogs who have itchy skin and 55% of cats with itchy skin are due to the fact that they have a pet food allergy. So when you see your pet scratching, don't necessarily give them the Benadryl or load them up with some topical lotion. Think possibly that it has something to do with their diet. One of the leading integrative vets, Dr. Karen Becker, she makes a quote, and I'm paraphrasing again, that says, if you've been feeding your pet the same food for many months or many years, the odds are pretty good that they're developing or have developed an allergy to its ingredients. And it's true, because what happens is, feeding the same thing, maybe chicken, over every single day for breakfast and lunch and snacks, the body gets, in effect, overdosed with that ingredient. And it develops a response, a negative response. It's overloaded. It just doesn't know how to deal with it anymore. And so there's ways that you can deal with that. When you find out that there's a problem, the rotational strategy hopefully will avoid the problem. So let's put a plan in place. So let's say you decide you want to try to rotate food for your pet because of all the benefits. How would you go about doing that? It's actually pretty simple, reasonably simple. First thing you want to do, you want to check with your vet. You want to make sure that there's no known allergies, or if there are known allergies, that you want to avoid those foods, those ingredients, and they have no other gastrointestinal or other health issues that would preclude them from switching food on a regular basis. Step one. Step two, you want to find foods that have limited proteins and carbohydrates in them so that you can develop a strategy to feed product that doesn't have proteins and carbohydrates that you fed in the past. I recommend 2 to 3 month cycles, by the way. So every 2 to 3 months, you would switch from, let's say, a chicken and rice-based formula to a salmon and potato-based formula. So that's step two. Step three, really key here. Let's say you go and you've got a great strategy, you've got your foods all lined up, you no more chicken for 3 months or 6 months, and then you're handing out treats with chicken in them. Defeats the purpose. So you have to not only watch the food, but you also have to watch the treats. Find treats that have the proteins that are consistent and compatible with your current food strategy. The next thing, and this is a little tricky, is you've got to check the ingredients in your pet's food. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at a pet food label for a second. You see the name, you see a picture, wow, that looks good. You pick it up off the shelf, you feed your pet. You got to go a little deeper than that, and I'll give you an example. Because at SlimDoggy.com, we run these numbers. We ran it on our food database. And we found out that 24% of the dog foods, the name of the dog foods, have the word chicken in it. So it clearly says chicken, so you know if you were rotating off of chicken, you wouldn't use that food. Well, guess what? 69% of the foods have chicken in it. So if you just bought it based on the label, there's a very good chance that that food still has the ingredient that you did not want to serve your pet. So you got to look at the full ingredient list. And you can go to our database online at SlimDoggy.com if you want to check out the ingredients for the foods that you're considering. The next thing that you want to do, and the last thing that you want to do with respect to rotational strategy, is think about choosing not just different proteins, but also different brands. And the reason I say that is because if all you're doing is rotating chicken for 3 months, to beef for 3 months, to venison for 3 months, etc. But you're using the exact same basic recipe that a brand is providing. You may not get the other benefits that I talked about with respect to food synergies, synthetic vitamin, or elimination of synthetic vitamins, and also the fact that those foods are generally formulated basically the same way other than the protein sources. So you don't get those other benefits. So keep that in mind. Try to find not just different proteins, but different recipes and possibly even different brands. As far as your timing, how would you implement the strategy? 2 to 3 months is a good period of time to feed your pet one type of food and then move them on to another product with another main source of protein and carbohydrate for another 2 or 3 months. And you can keep doing that basically every quarter. The reason why that's a great time period to do it is because if your pet has a known allergy, one of the ways that you determine that is through what they call an elimination diet, which says for 2 to 3 months, eliminate that suspected allergen, and you'll find out if there's a reaction. So we follow that same approach with our rotational strategy. We also like to say this: don't just go from chicken for 3 months to venison for 3 months and then back to chicken. Try to hit a few types of proteins over the course of the year, maybe 4 over the course of a year. So for example, you might go from chicken to beef to venison to salmon, and then, assuming that there are no known issues, you can go back again to chicken and start all over again. It's really simple. It's a great strategy for your pet's health. Maybe a little confusing at first for the pet owner to get their arms around it, but remember, that whole idea of feeding your pet the same food for their entire life is nothing but a myth. And thanks to some of the leading veterinarians like Dr. Becker, we're finally getting a chance to bust those myths. So give it a shot. Let us know how you do. We have some resources on our site at SlimDoggy.com. Do the research, make sure your vet's on board, and try a rotational diet. Your dog and cat will thank you for it.
Steve, in your PetX talk, you mentioned the transitioning from one food to another food maybe every quarter. But a common question that all of us pet parents have is how to transition our pets from one food to another food and the proper way to do it.
That's a great question, Robert. I think, obviously if your dog has some health issues, you need to work this through with your veterinarian. But assuming that your dog's normal and healthy, the whole idea of transitioning from one food to another food is kind of bizarre to me. I'll give you an example. My dog and all my dogs have always gone out, run out in the yard, eaten dead animals, corpses that have been there for months, completely desiccated, maggot-infested, corpses and things like that, and they never have a problem with their stomach as a result of that. So the transition issue says to me that we are making a big deal over nothing in many cases, not all cases. That said, if you're like one of the many people who feed their pets the same food every single day for long periods of time, it would make sense that perhaps they need to transition from one type of food to the next. So the way to do that is by slowly mixing the new food in to the old food over the course of a week or so until the old food is gone. Really simple. As you go through and follow a rotational strategy over time, your pet's body is going to be used to absorbing these different kinds of nutrients and these different sources of protein and carbohydrate. And my guess is that over time, the transitional periods will actually go away.
Another common question that pet parents have when it comes to rotating foods, in particular with the proteins, beef to chicken to lamb to fish to this to that, what kind of guidance do you offer to pet parents in that topic?
I think that the key, for me the key is a couple things. One, look for, unless there's an allergy, for dogs, fish-based proteins should be part of the mix. The omegas, all the benefits that they provide, something that's really critical. And for a lot of pet parents, they're typically feeding just beef or chicken type meals and very short on the omega components. The other thing is that beef and chicken are the two most popular ingredients in pet food. Chicken, I mentioned in my speech, is on the label 24% of the time, but in the ingredients 69% of the time. So even if you don't know it, you're unwittingly probably feeding your pet chicken. So you want to try to focus on that one, move that one off their menu for a while. And don't forget treats, because if you're feeding your pet a rotational food strategy, but still sabotaging it with treats, you're not doing any good. With respect to venison and other kinds of proteins, we love the novel proteins, novel being basically not chicken and not beef and not turkey. And we like them because they're a way for us to introduce new types of protein sources to our pet, things that they haven't been exposed to in the past. Gives us a chance to make sure that they're getting all the nutrition that they properly need over the long run.
In your PetX talk, you mentioned that just being a little bit off can certainly change the course of your pet's life. How important is it to understand proper measurements with feeding habits?
That's a great question. So, as we know, according to Association for Pet Obesity Prevention, more than half of the dogs and cats in the United States are overweight or obese. With dogs, that means on average 2 years shorter lifespan. 2 years. For a dog, that's quite a bit percentage-wise of their life. So the simplest way to deal with that is proper measurement, is knowing how many calories the pet needs every day based on how active they are. Obviously, if they're injured or older, they would need less than if they're young and active. But know that number, and then also know how many calories are in your food or foods. So you just measure. Very simple, measure. If it says 2 cups a day, that's 2 cups a day. That doesn't mean 2 quarts a day, it means 2 cups a day. Get a little measuring cup or a measuring spoon, whatever it is you take, a pet feeder, smart feeder, whatever you need, but make sure that you're not overfeeding, because even if you're rotating the diet and giving them all the best possible food that you can, if you're feeding them too much, you're cutting their life short and you're increasing the amount of money you're going to spend on food, of course, and medical care.
Steve, thank you so much. We really appreciated your PetX talk and all of the different things that you're doing in the pet world.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you, Robert.
Thank you for joining us for this PetX talk. To learn more information about Steve Pelletier, visit SlimDoggy.com. Funding for PetX Talks is provided by Pet World Media Group, your partner in all things pet media. Additional funding and considerations for PetX Talks is provided by Natura Pets. Natura Pets can help you optimize your pet's health with premium organic supplements from the Amazon and Andes Mountains. Visit naturapets.com. Dogwise Publishing, all things dog. For all of your expert dog book needs, visit dogwise.com. Found Animals, working towards big ideas that advance the safety and happiness of animals in our homes, our shelters, and everywhere in between. Visit foundanimals.org. Special thanks to Pet World Insider, taking you inside the world of pets. Visit petworldinsider.com for more expert radio interviews, articles, and videos. This has been a Pet World Media Group production.